Hello, everyone, and welcome to an episode of Here at the Table, a new podcast put on by the Cathedral of the Rockies, Boise First United Methodist Church, located in Boise, Idaho, hosted by your communications team.
Hello.
Oh, that's us. Hi, I'm Brennan.
Yeah, and my name is Alex. We're all very excited to be trying out this adventure together. We're going to go around and we are missing one of our communication team members here today. But for the three of us that are here in this moment, we're going to go around and introduce ourselves and our job titles and anything that is related to Cathedral of the Rockies and what it is that we do here and why we find ourselves here. So, Naki, do you want to kick it off?
Absolutely. My name is Naki. I have two titles here. The first is Director of Communications, which is why I am here in this room recording a podcast with the communications team. And second is Director of Contemporary Worship. So our 10 o'clock service, all of the things that go on in that service, aside from Dwayne's preaching, are typically planned by me.
Well, I'm Brennan. I'm colloquially the video guy, but my job title is Creative Arts and Media Director. So anything that goes on to our video channels or podcast channels, including what you're listening to right now, I'm the producer, editor, that sort of thing. The techie guy around the place. I've been here for, I think we just passed the threshold of 2.5 years. Oh, yeah.
Nice.
And all of those beautiful sermon graphics that you enjoy each Sunday, that's Brennan.
Yeah, that's me.
And if you listen to the All Means All podcast, you have heard Brennan's voice before. You've heard him and seen him on videos. Brennan is like the voice you hear even if you don't always see the face.
Exactly.
At this
And
church.
you still can't see my face.
Okay. And then my name is Alex, which I already said, but I didn't tell you what I do. So I am in charge of social media and marketing for the church. And then I also am the worship director out at the Amity campus. So we are just beginning to launch our 2 worship services out of the Amity campus, 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., which is going to be a new journey for me. So that's a big priority that is coming up on my to-do list. But a big priority that was on my to-do list that just got finished was Boise Pride. So we don't know when anybody is going to be listening to this episode, so this might not be super recent. But at this time, as we were recording it, Boise Pride just wrapped up 2 days ago, and we were all there. How was your guys' Pride experience?
Rainy, which was amazing. I left Pride when the sun came out. Essentially.
Oh, you got lucky.
That's very your personality.
It started to get humid and I was like, I'm out. That's what. But it was great. I always enjoy the setup piece of it just because that is when everybody else is also setting up and there's just a lot of camaraderie and everybody willing to help one another out. And it's just from the very start of Pride, there is a lot of coming together.
Yeah. So this is Alex again talking, and I helped organize our outreach and presence at Boise Pride. So worked with volunteers, getting people signed up, getting communication out to the people who were working the booth, working the parade. And so that was all really fun. I got to help Naki with setup, and I got to be there when we tore everything down. And if I did my job well over the course of the weekend, it meant that I was not actually very necessary to be physically present at the booth. I just needed to be near the booth in case something came up that required my attention. So I got to spend a lot of time walking around and checking things out. And I always love Boise Pride. Shout out to those organizers who do an amazing job. Their board and their executive director team just puts a lot of heart and passion into it, and you can tell how much they care about this community. So very grateful for all of that, but it was exhausting. I was adding up the hours. It was like 22 to 23 hours across both days of Boise Pride that I was there.
Good night.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot.
It was a lot. I walked away with a full heart and not a lot of sleep and a few sunburns. So yeah. Brennan, how about you? How'd you enjoy Pride?
I only got to experience the tail end of it because there was another festival happening at the same time that I also wanted to go to. And only so much time in a weekend. But I got the latter half of Saturday. I was part of the teardown crew, and it was nice. By that point, most people are just kind of going through and like picking up candy, whatever they can grab before people start shutting down. But it was very interesting. We were kind of in Church Alley because I was working the booth. Right. We were like in Church Alley because there's St. Luke's next to us, and then there's another Episcopal church across the grass. And there's two. Well, I don't think they were supposed to be there. Two yahoos who were handing out, books about. They were kind of hostilely worded. I'll say that. So people were coming up very defensive, and it was interesting because it might have just been when I was working the booth because everyone. When I was working had their own personal pride swag they're going. Like I had my flag and the other people with me had their own flags and they were just hosting their own stuff. So it was fun to see people come up a little guarded and then just become a little disarmed when they could see that it was genuine.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, continuing off of that, so we're entering into right now, as we're recording this, entering into the fall, which is a really busy time for all of us here at church. And it's like you are literally just a couple of months away from the craziest part of the year with the holidays and church work. But you were alluding to, we were present as a church at Boise Pride, and we were representing that we truly do care about people and want people to feel welcomed in this space, that we're not just there to try to get people in the door and then put limitations on them once they enter. So that kind of segues into a question that I wanted to ask the both of you and that I'll answer as well. But that question is, what is your story in the church and with the church, and what was your experience? Did you grow up in church or did you join religion or church at a later age? How do you think about your position in all of those things right now?
I'll go first. I was born in the church, basically. I was in the South. I was in Mississippi, and both my parents were attending a Methodist church. And so, of course, that was the one I went to, and I went there from early age all the way to college. Then college, I didn't really find a church while I was in college, and I came back, and I was working tech and I needed a job, and they had a job for a tech person because that was the beginning of COVID. So, so they needed
fun time to join a church staff.
Yeah,
it was the beginning of COVID.
It was a very interesting time. Well, I mean, my job was essential to how church functioned during COVID.
Yeah,
I would say your job is how church functioned
basically,
during COVID.
Yeah. That's how the church kept afloat those years. So yeah, I've been in the church my whole life. It's always been, as far as my career has gone, it's always been part of my career too.
Absolutely. I think for me, I grew up in a different church. I grew up Catholic, but have been going to church ever since I was a little kid. Like my earliest memories are at church. The difference is I did not grow up in the Bible Belt of the South. I grew up in the Catholic Church in Idaho, which when I was growing up was a pretty great place to grow up as far as the people that were around me and just the vibe of the church overall. It was pretty chill. It was an interesting experience because I was attending a church that skewed a lot older for the overwhelming congregation, but had a pretty vibrant youth ministry program that was growing and had attracted a lot of young adults and teenagers to be a part of that program. So that's kind of where I grew up. I was the kid, the annoying kid that was running around the youth group when I was 10 and 11 because my mom was a volunteer, which I thought it was great because I looked up to all these people that I thought were literal adults. And it turns out now they were probably 15.
Man, they didn't know anything.
I was like, wow, they know so much about the world and they go to high school. Look how cool they are.
Yeah.
And, but that was kind of the environment that I grew up in. It was a Catholic youth ministry world, which is very odd because Catholic youth ministry looks a lot more like evangelical youth ministry, because the whole concept of youth ministry in the Catholic Church is very new and is very American. There are some things that are very specific to being Catholic when I tell people about my background that they can't relate to. But when I listen to people tell their stories of youth group experiences in evangelical settings, I tend to be oh yeah, we had our version of that thing.
There's a template.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, I went on retreats, and the second night of the retreat was the night where everybody is expected to cry your eyes out.
The altar call is what we would call it in the evangelical world.
Exactly.
Oh, we did that the second night? That was a fourth night thing.
Well, if it was a weekend retreat,
every night.
Right. Yeah.
And Catholics, here we have all of our upbringings in one example.
Yeah. Yeah, Catholics don't do altar calls. We do what is called Eucharistic adoration.
Oh,
which is
fancy.
That's just altar call that went to liberal arts college.
But it is too complicated for me to explain the concept of Eucharistic adoration.
And we don't want to know.
Yeah. That is fair. Honestly.
I'm mostly kidding.
That is fair. But Naki,
Yes.
tell us more about your experience in the
man.
church.
Well, I, like Brennan, am a fellow Southerner. I grew up in Texas, was born into the church. When I was born, my dad was a pastor at the time in the Assemblies of God. I will remain nice. So, very evangelical. And with this Assemblies of God, a very Pentecostal type church. And with the differences in Pentecostal types, it is the very spirit-filled, very demonstrative. And for people who just truly would not know, believing in things like speaking in tongues, being slain in the spirit, those types of things, like very, very, very demonstrative. And anybody who knows me in person, in real life, knows that's probably not my speed, you know? So I spent most of my life being very uncomfortable in church, like truly just due to the noise levels. But, yeah, so grew up in it. I did not initially go to college or anything like that because I went to a ministry program. I don't ever say their name out loud because I don't want them to have the credit. So I have lovingly just called it Jesus Camp for over a decade. So did a lot of ministry training and things like that. And so that was my upbringing and how that continued. I eventually left the church for a good decade because there were a lot of questions that I just felt weren't answered well about God. Mm-hmm. And it took me a very long time to make my way back.
Yeah.
But here I am.
I think that's like such a running theme when it comes to people that I talk to who attend Cathedral of the Rockies, especially if they've joined the church anytime in the last decade. They tend to be people who came from somewhere else, and typically there was a break in between their time where they were and then now they found themselves here.
Like truly in the most respectful way, and for somewhat a lack of any other kind of language, at least in our 10 o'clock service, I would say, because that's the one I can speak to, is we have a lot of church or religious refugees who,
It's a good term. I like
you
that.
know, like are, you know, they had a home church or a home congregation or religion or denomination, and they experienced something in it that caused some type of wound or damage, and probably did some form of deconstruction and have made their wounded way to Cathedral. And so like that is a thing that probably my favorite thing about Cathedral is the safe space that we're all a part of creating.
I mean, I had wanted to ask both of you the question of what do you find most meaningful about the work that you do here or that we do here at Cathedral of the Rockies? And I'll start because I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit, easy answer, which is just as someone who came from a church, like I worked in Catholic church environments for over a decade of my life. And there was this like incrementalism that was happening with openness and acceptance and being the church that I believe that Christ calls the church to be. And every time that I saw like a little step, like a little moment here, like, and really it was like when Pope Francis became the Pope of the Catholic Church, it was like this huge thing where it was like, oh, maybe we're actually going to be this like safe harbor, this welcoming home for all people, not just the people that fit in. And so I really stayed and poured my heart and soul into that church environment and that church community for a long time, probably longer than I should have. but because I saw some hope there. But,
Right.
you know, regardless of all of that, eventually found my way out of that environment because it just was never going to accept someone like me in a leadership position, in a staff position. And I mean, even in like a worship context, like it just wasn't a safe place for someone who identifies as part of the LGBTQ community to be a part of, which is really disappointing. But unfortunately not surprising in so many church environments around here. That's why I like the work that we do here at Cathedral of the Rockies so much, because there is a specific intent put into welcoming people no matter the background that they come from, and creating a place where people feel safe no matter what. And we see that evidenced in everything, not just the way that we welcome LGBTQ plus people, but also in the way that we welcome the unhoused, and in the way that we welcome people who are struggling with food insecurity. I could go on and on and on, but I just think that overwhelmingly the thing that I find most meaningful about the work here at Cathedral is how much we care about welcoming people as they are.
I find it really meaningful to see those situations where we've taken these church refugees. That's a good I'm gonna start using church refugees all the time now, because I haven't used it. The word I've been using is we are a good space for healing church trauma.
I mean, also very true.
But I think church refugees is a good way to put it. When I can see things like we had a baptism just like last Sunday of someone who probably never thought they were going to be baptized in a church that thought they were going to accept her. Yeah. It's those things that keep me coming back, you know. Like I tried to step away from working at the church because the church I was working at was caught up in the split. If you don't know, Methodist church just had a big split. A couple people are like, but we want to be mean to LGBT people, and they split off to their own church. The pastor I was working for was very much on the side of the Globe Methodist Church and like trying to get it started. And I had this such friction with what I believed about the Bible, what I believed to be true about God versus what I was being asked to do. So I had to step away. And here, it feels like those two things are in sync. What I believe about the Bible and what I'm being asked to do, and like the fruit I see happening in service are so much in sync here. Mm-hmm. And that's what I find meaningful about here, is helping those church refugees.
Yeah. To add a little bit, there's a quote by Glennon Doyle that says, "The thing that breaks your heart is the very thing you were born to help heal." And, you know, I am one in a sea of people who had their heart broken by churches. And, you know, my decision at that time was just like, cool, I don't need church, and I don't need God, and I don't need God's people in those churches. You know, I first started here as just a volunteer on the worship team. It was as Cathedral had opened back up post-COVID, and to walk in and see signs on the front doors that said, "Love your neighbor, wear a mask." And at the time, I was working somewhere that we were truly among the very first offered the vaccine. And the amount of people who were livid at being offered the vaccine, like just being offered, not told they had to get vaccinated, but just seeing those two worlds that both served people in their own ways. That was the first like breath of fresh air with Cathedral, to be a part of a church that helps heal broken hearts and hearts that were broken in other churches. You know, that is, I mean, we do that in so many ways. And even in my own job, there are different avenues in which I'm able to do that. But being a part of healing the same type of broken heart that I had is like, there's no way to put a value on that.
Yeah, that's really powerful. It creates this strong sense for all of us of justice for those people who have experienced that. Like, we always tend to be very conscious of how are those people, because we've all been those people. How are the church refugees going to receive these messages and this messaging? And I think for all three of us, there is a lot of meaning behind like an overall meaning behind why we find ourselves here at this church. But I'm curious about more of our experience and our specific jobs? What are the ways that we connect that desire to serve those church refugees to the specific work that we do day in and day out?
I do like to, setting a mood feels like the worst way to say it possible.
But
I'm gonna set the mood.
There is like a science to it. The things we see on screens, the colors, the temperature in the room, even the lights, the things we see on stage do affect our emotions. They affect how willing we are to be opened up, to receive change, to be open to suggestion and new ideas. And I like being able to help people have a good experience with God.
Mm-hmm.
I like getting them in a state where they can feel vulnerable and speak with God and listen to the things that they are being called to do. And it feels good to know that I can help people have a transformative experience.
Mm-hmm.
I have to piggyback off of that because Brennan and I are, it's really hard to say Brennan and I
Struggled with that my whole life.
And I work in tandem with the 10 o'clock service. And I think we both are very mindful of even the smallest ways that we can help curate an experience, things that some people may not even track, like how we will coordinate lights with the liturgical season, or we will coordinate lighting and things like that, just in ways like it was really important to me. I knew a few years ago, I think 2 Easters ago, I knew we were going to have someone visiting for the first time who was transgender. I asked him to make sure all of the lights either that day were pride colors or transgender colors. I have no idea if that person clocked it, but it was just those small things that you hope if somebody captures that moment, it is a moment of belonging and a moment of welcoming. Like, I truly pray every Sunday a space where people feel comfortable and safe enough to let go, to relax, and to connect to what they need, whatever that is. And like, that's my language because one of my core values is connection. And so it is just those, in some ways, people will never know. There are worship conglomerates out in the world. I will not do music by them because they have done active harm to marginalized communities. And I don't care if it's a penny. I am not putting a penny in your bank account by doing your music because they just have proven they're not safe for people who really need safety in this world. And you both have used the words intention or intentionality. And I think those really intentional, big and small things are ways that I personally am able to create the space where a church refugee, our new term, can feel welcome and safe, and if they would like to, belong.
Yeah, I think there's so many things that we do. I mean, for me as the worship director out at Amity, there are little things that I do all the time that create more work for me that I have no idea if other people notice.
Yeah.
Maybe they do, maybe they don't.
yeah.
Like
Man,
sometimes
I'm
it's
sensing a theme.
yeah, sometimes it's going through and it's just identifying everywhere in a song where God is referred to by a male pronoun.
Yeah.
Because, I remember years ago hearing someone change their pronouns in a prayer of how they refer to God to gender neutral from the masculine version of those pronouns. And this was when I was still like in the Catholic Church. And I remember the first couple times that I heard it, I thought it was just like, God is God the Father. Like, what are you going to do about it? And that was my perspective at the time because that's what I had been exposed to. But the thing that that changed within me was when I started to realize that not only does scripture and tradition refer to God in so many other titles than Father, that God is sometimes creator, which is just a very neutral term. God is mother.
Yeah,
sometimes.
I was going to say in Isaiah, God is referred to as like a nurturing mother.
Yeah, exactly. And so then that's like sort of like helped me see that I could change that pronoun usage, and then also just having conversations with people where they're like, hey, if you're going to refer to God as a, not to pick on any particular songwriter, but as a good father, they were like, I have a bad father and I don't like that song. That song gives me some like crappy experiences.
I cannot compute.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think that the difference that we have here is that the praise that we sing is not about conformity to a specific idea or experience of God, but it is about, as you both were talking, like creating a space where people can be themselves. And then when it comes to the social media and marketing side, that's what I try to do with the language all of the time. And let me tell you, it creates really uncomfortable moments sometimes. Like the fact that I try to never caption a social media caption ever with the words "join us," because it just it implies that you are not a part of it.
Yeah.
Like we are an us and you are not a part of it. And so instead trying to use more intentionally inclusive language, and nobody else sees how much time I sit at my computer crafting a sentence that doesn't use "join us" to invite a bunch of people to come to an event that they maybe haven't been to. But like, that's some of the heart that I think all three of us put into our respective jobs and our responsibilities, is creating a heartfelt, intentional welcome at every level where we're able to touch those spaces.
And just inclusion.
Absolutely. Well, we have been talking about all of the things that we really love about this church specifically, and we have talked about some of our experiences in Christianity and our religious upbringings a little bit. But I think all of us definitely have thoughts on the question of, how do we think that the church, whether it's the church that we are all currently a part of, whether it's the United Methodist Church as a denomination, or whether it's the institutional church and Christianity as a whole, how do we think that the church needs to adapt and change for the era that we currently find ourselves in?
I mean, I think one place to start is like read the red words and then actually try to live by them. Just meaning that,
Explain the red words.
The red words, the ones that Jesus said.
So when we look in scripture, we see that there are red words.
Yes, depending on your Bible. I am not picking on, like, when you talk about whether it's this church or the greater UMC church or like just church as an institution.
You can, though.
Oh, I'm going with the third one. Church as an institution, regardless of denomination. I understand that the Bible, first and foremost, like when I say it wasn't written for us, I mean, we didn't live all that time ago. I think we would do well to remember, you know, like with what they call the clobber passages, or the ones that are used to just beat the LGBTQ plus community over the head relentlessly, like those types of scriptures. Like there's a lot of Bible reading. There's not a lot of Bible studying. You know, and those are just two different things. Like, that's just the truth of it. I up until recently didn't do a ton of Bible studying myself either. But I think that, you know, in the political climate and things like that, when pastors are standing up in their pulpits and calling empathy toxic, we've lost a plot somewhere, you know, and I think that the collective church should really do a much better job with reading the actual Bible and then living it.
And just understanding the actual
like
Bible.
Understanding it. And like, I include myself in that though.
Yeah.
Like I include Cathedral in that, like, let's make sure that we are, you know, one of the things that Pastor Dwayne has said that I have really appreciated is like, there will be an argument, oh, but that's biblical. And he'll say, it's biblical, but is it Christ-like? Because war is in the Bible, incest in the Bible, killing infants in the Bible. Those things are biblical. They're not Christ-like. Where the church at large could do better is, I mean, being Christ-like, you know, like that's the thing. And like, you're not going to know what Christ was like if you're not reading about Jesus. And like that is, I mean, when you think about it, those of us who are church refugees have become church refugees because churches were not Christ-like. And that doesn't mean entirely corrupt. That doesn't mean like, oh my gosh, raise it to the ground, level it, like there's no hope, start fresh. It's just like, no, like we all have ways to be and do better. That is my overall critique, and I include myself and Cathedral all the way to our top. All have to make sure that we are doing a better job of living like Jesus called us to live.
I think that's something too that's really hard for us to do socially, because Protestant society has had such an influence in how we as an American society have come to know and understand our values.
Right.
There are all of these things, values, virtues, I'm putting those in air quotes, we think of as core to American society, and that we also think of as core to like biblical teaching. Yeah. And sometimes they're not. In fact, sometimes we have taken away the exact opposite lesson that we were trying to, that Scripture was trying to convey to us.
Yes. Yeah.
And so we need to be better. I mean, as a person raised Catholic, I don't want to read the Bible like ever if I can help it. But
as a pastor's kid, like, no thanks.
I can't even read.
That's why I make videos. But
somebody else does the captioning. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. I don't usually want to read the Bible. I'm not that person that has fallen in love with the idea of reading or studying the Bible. Naki's making a face and shaking her head no as well. But I have people in my life like Naki and like the pastors that we have here at Cathedral who do a really good job of unpacking what Scripture truly means, rather than when we take a very surface level look at something that was intended for a completely different audience.
Or you're just like trying to read it through your own context. Like, you live today as an American, you're not an ancient Hebrew. You know, like understanding all of the, you know, like we had Lindsay as our small group coordinator, and she preached a sermon out at our Amity campus on unlearning how to read the Bible. And she talked about how the Hebrew language, the biblical Hebrew language, is actually a very like words paint pictures, not words paint words. And so that is not really an American thing, like words are words, and most of them are quite confusing. Yeah. You know, like everybody will tell you English is one of the most difficult languages for that reason. And so like you're saying, like if I am trying to figure out how this applies to 2025 Naki in her everyday context, like that's going to be hard. Yeah. If not impossible.
Yeah.
My answer to this question goes in an entirely different direction.
Good. We don't just want like group think here.
Let's just remind everyone though that the question is, how do you think that the church, whether it's this church, the UMC, or the institutional church in general, needs to adapt for the era that we are currently in? So Brennan, what is your answer?
It's not really, the problem is I don't really have an answer. I just have a problem that I've noticed, and I don't know how to solve it.
We're here to fix problems.
Okay, that's what this podcast is about.
Yeah, we're three white people sitting in a room with microphones. Obviously, we will solve the problems.
It's something I've noticed since I've been here. The problem I find with the church, and I think it needs to fix, is there's not a good sense of community, I don't think. This is a problem at Cathedral, but I guess that's how I'm answering it. But it is a problem at other churches, I'm assuming. Sure. It's something to think about, because like I grew up in a time where like I was, Wednesday night we have dinner, and then everyone, like it's packed. Everyone at the church goes to it. And then COVID happened, and then those things changed. Now COVID was marked as a time in church ministry where you we're trying new things, adapting, changing it, because everything you knew didn't work. There was no way to make it work. Yeah. So how do we change it? What do we fix? And that's one of my favorite eras of church, looking at churches, especially like the streams, people figuring out weird things to do. People like cardboard cutouts of people in the stand in the congregation. That was my favorite one.
Ooh, the church that I was at printed out pictures that people sent into us and put them in the pews.
Yeah.
And it did not fix the problem. It did not make it look like there were people in the church, let me tell you.
So, the pandemic came to a close and churches were like, all right, let's go back to what we were doing before. But people were different.
Yeah.
And the things that worked before don't work anymore. Because like now we've in just the time that we've worked here, we've tried it several different ways to get like those Wednesday night dinners back. We have it. It costs a lot to do. No one comes. The youth programs have been struggling to come back, and they've like across the board, they've been struggling. I think part of the solution is finding a way to make people feel like community again, because it's hard. I don't have an answer. This is just a problem I've noticed, because I have the same reaction I'm sure a lot of people do, where like they hear about, oh, we're going to such and such's house. And I'm like, I don't know such and such. I'm not going to such and such's house. I don't want to cook for such and such. Mm-hmm. But that's what churches used to do. Yeah. I think that is the way to make churches feel more like home, is to have that community element. I don't know how to bring it back. It's just something I think churches need more of.
Yeah. I mean, I've said several times, my first time at Cathedral was as a volunteer. And had that not been the case, I don't know that I would have ever gotten connected anywhere else. And part of that is my introversion. I'm so sorry, Lindsay, but I'm never joining a small group.
There's a lot of people with that mindset. That's not a dig at her.
It's not at all. It's just like, as a very introverted person, the thought of an icebreaker at yet another group, I'm just like, look, there's nothing interesting about me. I have nothing to share. 3 fun
facts about yourself makes you want to roll your eyes back in your head.
It's like, there's nothing fun. No.
Yeah, especially when sometimes the answer might not be to drop you into a group that already exists for one reason or the other. And again, it's not anything about Lindsay, because that group might be not just small group oriented. Lindsay Cox is our small group coordinator. I guess we'll give full name in case anybody's interested in a small group. You should totally reach out to her, because she does a really great job. Yeah. But there are other ways that people get connected, and it could be something through missions. It could be something through some sort of education opportunity or some sort of worship opportunity. But if you don't feel like the church currently offers that connectional piece, then what do we as the church do? And I think that's a place where, when we have the time, which is almost never, where we can try to get innovative.
Yeah. But like, that's not what I'm good at. So
I make videos.
I'm happy to help, but I'm not an idea person.
So we're just going to armchair quarterback the entire church direction from our microphones.
Give me my beer.
It's too bad. What's his name already has the armchair expert.
Yeah. I do think that is a really important problem for us to consider, Brennan. So thank you for bringing it, even though you didn't bring the solution for it. We'll look forward to the next episode when you have that solution for us.
Okay.
He's like, oh, by the way, this is my last episode.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to take a step back.
My answer to this question of how can the church right now in its current era adapt and change, I'm going to go speaking to specifically the American church. I think right now, today, the thing that we could do, because I can't change the way that a bunch of churches operate, and I can't change the way that they are going, I can't change who they are willing to invite to their table. And so what I would like to change instead is I would like all churches to put a very specific welcome statement on all of their church websites and all of their church bulletins that says who they are for. Because if you knew specifically if you were being fully honest, I want it to be honest, an honest welcome statement that says, this is who this church is for, then you would have a lot of people that just didn't have to fuss around in the wrong church for years and years and years. Because to get a little more serious, I have had a couple of volunteers who have come to me through previous church experiences. And then they came to Cathedral of the Rockies, and they basically shared that experience of, they got really involved with a church where that church said that all people were welcome. And so that they thought, well, I am all
I'm a
people.
person.
I am a
I am a
human
person,
being.
therefore I am welcome
I
here.
have blood and skin. Yeah.
Is that the criteria?
Yeah, blood,
Oh.
skin,
Blood, skin.
not even bones. You
A
could just be
featherless bipedal. That's,
Amorphous. But you have blood and skin.
Yeah, and so they were like, I'm a person. I guess that means that I'm welcome. And then, they'd get really involved in a ministry for a period of time. And then someone would find out more about who they are, and someone would complain to a pastor, and then they get kicked out of being involved in that church. And I think both, like, they suffer because that is a traumatic thing to experience. Like, we have all experienced some version of church hurt, and that is definitely a huge part of church hurt. But also that church community suffers, because then you have to go through that awkwardness of one day there was this person who was there who was super involved in stuff, and then the next day they're just gone and nobody talks about why they're gone.
Well, and it depends on the church, like, because I think it would be one of two responses. They would either just kind of like skirt the issue and just be like, oh, it just turns out we weren't the right fit. Or they say, oh, well, it turns out we found out this person, and I don't think either of those results in you coming out on top in terms of looking like the good guy, you know?
Nope.
And also the other end of who suffers is whoever was being impacted by that person's volunteering. Let's say it's somebody serving in children's ministry or something like that, like somebody young and like in those impressionable and formative years. Like if they are having a really, like if they've built a great rapport with a kid and have been able to really like pour into that person, and now all of a sudden, well, that person's just not here anymore. That's, I mean,
it's a bit dramatic.
yeah, like that's traumatic for the kid. I had this really great person in my life, and now I don't have this really great person in my life. And I can tell I don't actually have the answers as to why.
Well, that happened to me. I was working as a youth minister in a Catholic church and posted some stuff about being inclusive of LGBTQ plus people because I was working with youth, and there were kids who were coming out to me and sharing who they really were. And I wanted them to know that they were in a safe and welcoming space. Well, it turns out it was not a very safe and welcoming space, because that's the thing that got me booted out of that church.
Like you were safe.
Yeah. Simply just posting that thing made me realize that I wasn't safe and that those kids weren't safe. And I just think of like the tragedy of that moment, because for me, there's that piece where I had somewhat deluded myself into thinking that I was going to find welcome and I was going to find home and safety and family and community in that space. But then you also have these kids that are being raised in this environment where they are being told that they belong, where it turns out no authentic version of themselves belongs and is welcomed. And so that's why I go back. Like, this is my thing. If I could change anything about the church right now, today in America, every church puts a welcome statement on there. They can say who it is that they serve and who it is that they don't serve. So if they want to put in their welcome statement, we are so excited to have all straight, cisgender, white, affluent people as members of our church.
For some reason, they don't want to put that on there, though. I don't know why that would be. Maybe there's shame.
Yeah, I don't know. But like, if they just want to be, I'd say just be open about it. Just say who you are for. You know,
like save yourself and the other people the heartache.
Yeah, save everyone the pain. We're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap up. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Here at the Table, a Cathedral of the Rockies podcast put on by our communication team, but we're going to be featuring a lot of different people from our church. We want to hear more about a lot of the stuff that Naki was sharing earlier, which is like proper historical context and understanding when it comes to scripture.
I mean, it's not all that boring. That makes it sound boring. We will be digging into scripture, but in a way that, at least to me, is interesting and that's saying something. That means it will probably be interesting to someone listening as well, just to figure out what the Bible actually says. Because right now, we have a lot of people in a lot of religious authority type positions who are saying the Bible says something, and man, are they wrong. And I love to say that I decided to go to seminary so that I can very accurately troll Christian nationalists.
Yeah.
And that will be a part of this in terms of learning what the Bible actually says. You can do your trolling on your own.
Yeah. So come back for the Christian nationalist trolling fuel that you will receive.
The fodder.
The fodder. But then we will also be sharing the stories of some of the people who are significant to our faith journeys, members of our church here at Cathedral of the Rockies, and people who are influential in the church beyond as well. We're going to wrap up, and I have kind of a lightning round of questions. I like to call it the final quick questions. And I'm going to ask you all these questions, and I'll answer as well to the best of my ability. The first one is, what is your favorite food establishment in the Treasure Valley? So that means anything, any consumable.
It's hard not to say tangos.
So say it.
Tangos.
That's a great answer. Naki?
Good Lord, Amano. It's a dining experience, and you will pay for it, but my goodness.
Literally or figuratively?
This food.
I know you meant money, but I was imagining
money.
stomach trouble.
No, not stomach
You
trouble. Like, just so consistently good, and it has never disappointed. It is so good.
My favorite food establishment that comes to mind right now in the Treasure Valley is Black Moon Pizza.
Oh man, so
It
good.
is so
haven't been there.
good. It is on Chinden in Garden City, and it's owned by the same people that own Broadcast Coffee. Some of my favorite pizza in the
Yeah.
entire city of Boise.
The best gluten-free pizza I've ever had.
Wow, we love to hear it. So Black Moon Pizza,
Black Moon Pizza.
Tango's Empanadas, and Amano and Caldwell. Those are some good recommendations, everybody. Well, now I'd like some bad recommendations. What is one piece of terrible advice that you could either share or that you have been on the receiving end
Eat
of?
one handful of grass a day for teeth health.
Did somebody tell you that?
No, I just made that up as terrible advice.
I mean, it is terrible
great.
advice.
That's terrible advice. That is terrible advice.
like a
and I
whole
love
handful
it.
of grass.
A whole handful.
Doesn't
of
matter what
grass.
kind.
Okay, Naki, terrible advice.
I mean, all I have in my head now are like diet advice, given our terrible grass advice.
I didn't mean to poison
Don't
the
even
water.
ask about the interest rate. Just apply for the loan. I love you, Ashley.
Don't even ask about the interest rate. Just apply for the loan.
That's
Terrible advice.
that's
Don't do
terrible.
it. My piece of terrible advice is like, it's something that I see people very seriously adhering to at times. And I think it's terrible advice. And it is the phrase, just keep going. Just keep going. And I think sometimes that is fair. If you are a runner who is doing a marathon and you are exhausted and you have made it to mile 23 of your marathon, all right, just keep going. You're probably going to be happy with yourself if you just keep going and you make it to the end at mile 26 and you get to feel that sense of accomplishment. But there are a lot of things that happen in life where just keep going. Terrible advice.
Yeah.
Terrible advice. So you know what? I'd say instead, sometimes know when to stop.
There you go.
Share a book, podcast, movie, TV show, video game, album that is bringing you joy right now.
Amy Poehler's podcast. Good hang with Amy Poehler. Part of the reason she has shared she is doing a podcast, she's actually really funny about it, about just being one more podcast, but is so that people will laugh and make time to share the things that bring them joy right now.
Oh.
And it's so good.
She's so funny. Okay, Brendan, what's your answer?
My partner's been playing a game recently called Judero.
Say that again.
Judero.
Okay.
Judero.
Judero. Judero.
Judero.
It is a game that like two guys did together, and it is based in like Celtic folklore, and it is all stop motion, handcrafted little clay puppets. It's pretty in an ugly kind of way, you know what I mean? Like the faces of the characters are like, they're like mashed together. You can still see thumbprints, but you can see it took them so long to make it, and it's so beautiful. And it's also got a really good sense of humor. Like there's like an island of dead people, and you go talk to ghosts, and one of them like talks about the mortality of his death and like the trauma that he has to let go of to move on. But if he doesn't have his trauma, then what is he? And right next to him, sharing the same amount of screen time, is a character named Ghosty Woasty Cheese on Toasty, who goes blah, 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 blah. Like it's ridiculous.
We went from very deep to literal gibberish.
Thank you so much. I can tell that is bringing you a lot of joy.
It has brought me a lot of joy.
The thing that I want to recommend is doesn't fit any of these categories, though it is a piece of media. There is a TikTok creator. His name is Mark Sebastian, and he is in the middle of, I guess, what we would call season 2 of what he calls the Great American Gay Side Quest. And he just goes to different places in the country, like different regions, traveling by himself and having experiences. But he's really funny with the way way he does it. And I find it just so therapeutic to watch every day because it is both relatable and also the kind of thing where you don't really have to think that hard while you consume it. And right now in season 2, he's going through the Pacific Northwest, which is a place just full of whimsy and haunted things. And he's been enjoying that. Okay. Thank you so much, Naki, Brennan. It's great to have you here.
I wanted you to say Naki, Brennan, Self.
Yeah, Naki, Brennan.
So thank you, Alex.
Thank you to all of you. And it's been great to have this chance to have this discussion. For anybody who is listening, thanks so much for listening.
Yeah.
We don't know all of the details of how this podcast is going to work, but we are excited about bringing it to your ears and hope that you enjoy it. If you do enjoy it, we would love to hear from you. You can email us at communications@Boise, FUMC, as in First United Methodist Church.org. So communications@Boise, FUMC.org. Thank you so much for listening. And we have had a great time here in this moment. So everybody have an excellent week, and
we won't see you.
We'll hear you.
We'll talk to you next time.
Or see
you go.
you. There you go. I'm tired of going home.
Yeah.